Hello there, everybody, this is Alex from Hardcore Guides, bringing my guide for God of War 2 on Titan difficulty. Today we're doing part 11, titled The Edge of Creation. This is going to be a very big episode, mainly because I tackled a lot of specific events. And usually what I consider an area worthy of being a level or whatever, is usually depending on, like, a boss, for instance. And this one has one specific boss, which is great because, well, not that the one boss thing is great. I'm just saying, yeah, my words don't ever make any sense. But the thing that's great about God of War 2, I meant to say, was that this game has a lot of bosses, so it's kind of easy to kind of maneuver around what levels are what. Also, archers in this section will end up doing quite a bit of damage. You can't block their projectiles. I think you could maybe parry them, but at the very least, you can't block them because they will, put you in a stun like right there. Whew, my words are not coming to me very well. So what I do with this guy is I run back here and simply just smash him up. I didn't expect the Barbarian Hammer to work like that. Also, I was just trying to trigger a parry to see if it would work because I figured they were going to shoot me down. So if you do get close, grab them and then go for a throw as fast as possible, because you can see how much damage and just annoyance these guys are to me. And yeah, they do quite a bit of damage, and they're very annoying, and they're going to be even more annoying in the next area. But the first guy, like you saw earlier, you can just lure him out and, Medusa gaze, or just fight him by himself, one or the other. Now, you could skip this entire fight yourself and get to a checkpoint, but I decided not to do that. I think I'm going to have to go back and edit something real fast, because I made a noise. I didn't mean to. Anyway, so disregarding that, I got lucky and I knocked off, the enemy right there. And this part right here is where things are going to get extremely difficult. So the first thing I decided to do is, instead of fighting the enemies, I'm just going to run to the door as fast as possible. At least in this case, it was roll to the door. Get there as fast as humanly possible, and you should be fine. If you have magic to use Uriel's head, that's also a good thing. But I will show you guys another way of taking them down, because those guys did not disappear. They will return, and we will have to fight them later. However, I will be more prepared by then. I'll have at least a bit more magic, and I'll tell you when it's coming up. You should probably by then have magic, because there's going to be a chest showing up later before we go back out to that section that will either contain golden orbs for rage or magic orbs, and the chest itself should be enough to get you the magic we need. So these guys, I'm going to call them, I guess, the spawners of the game. They at the beginning part of this, they only spawn just minotaurs, so it's really not that bad. By now, you probably should be used to minotaurs, especially the regular looking minotaurs, like the non-armored, the non, magic blue or whatever the hell they are type other minotaurs that seem to be much more tankier in design. And these guys, what I do with the Mancers, or whatever, the magicians, we can call them that, I guess. I don't know what you would call them, but I forget. But anyway, what I do with them is I just go for the grab, and the thing that sucks is when you're grabbing them, just like satyrs, you have to mash your way out of, but 9 times out of 10, at least in the beginning area like this, not including the translator fight, especially not the translator fight, this part right here, like having to mash that circle button, it's not too difficult to deal with. Not just because of mashing, but like the minotaurs around you are not really going to be that much of a threat. What does kind of suck is when he does block your attacks, but for the most part, if you go for some grabs and just put them in grab and then you do some aerial combos on them, whatever that might be, especially aerial combos, considering the fact that like it just not necessarily does like a lot of damage, but it's nice damage to have just in general. Going toward them, and they can't defend against it, and that's always a good option. Same thing with the Minotaurs. You could do the same thing theoretically to them too. You could knock them in the air if you wanted with a whole triangle attack, and then from that you could essentially just wail on them while they're in the air, which I got pretty close to getting there, but also that's a really cool mechanic right there. I always forget how exactly it's supposed to activate. I think it's just maybe luck of the draw. I don't know how that one works. I usually just try to block those overheads just in case, because I know they're going to come down and it's going to hurt like hell. And yeah, so once you get rid of course, the spawners, that's when, the rest of the Minotaurs should be easy enough, especially one by itself, which I love fighting Minotaurs in God of War games. I think they're some of the most fun enemies to take down, only because I'm kind of a big fan of, like, the brute type characters, and something about, like, a smaller guy taking down a bigger guy, not, like, gigantic, but somebody that's just relatively a bit bigger than they are, is kind of an appealing trope to me, I guess. I have this weird thing. It's like an anime trope type thing where, you see like a much bigger, muscly guy, but then you have like, or in this case, consider Senator Armstrong versus, Raiden from Metal Gear Rising, like him doing the, the punches toward his chest, and it doesn't do anything, but then eventually, later on, they have a fight, and I don't know how to explain it, but I like that attribute. I guess it kind of coincides with my likeness of like fighting games too, because I do like the grappler characters, and not only do I like grappler characters, but I like fighting against them too. Probably because I like trying to, either outzone them or just, kind of like possibly outthink them. Which, granted, when you're trying to outthink a grappler, I'm not talking about myself. I'm talking about in general. Trying to outplay a grappler is kind of hard, because especially like somebody who's good at grappling. Because they probably know everything that you were going to do before you did it, and they just grab you before it's too late. So, that's how grapplers work. Seemingly. Again, not trying to build myself up, because I'm not the best at fighting games in general. I try to play and be good at what I do, but I'm not always the best. Yeah, this section here, I thought I could get away with knocking off one of the armored enemies, but I couldn't. So that's unfortunate. Of course, when I go to grab one of the enemies, I accidentally grab a harpy. Luckily, the harpies in this section are not too hard. I keep calling them sections. I gotta stop calling them that. Luckily, the harpies in this part are not too annoying like the other ones that we're gonna have to deal with later, especially in Atlas, when we have to deal with the fiery versions of them. That's going to suck. Those are some of the worst ones to deal with. And you'll see why when we get to that point. But that chest right there, just leave it for now. Even if you don't have the magic, I would suggest just leaving it. Mainly because the satyrs, the secondary version of satyrs, because they got a redesign. I don't know what type you would call them, but they do have a, I guess, I don't know, maybe I'm seeing it in a different way, but they seem to be more of like a fur design. Like, I feel like they have more fur going on to them, you know what I mean? They look more like a regular run-of-the-mill furry animal compared to like what satyrs used to kind of look like, where they were more like undead looking, and now they look more fleshed, I guess is the best way I can put it. They look more Egyptian too. That's another thing. But yeah, they definitely have like more flesh and skin on them than they did their other counterparts. So these ones, they may be intimidating, they may be scary at first, but they're really not too difficult to deal with. And I'll show you what I do. So typically with satyrs, especially in the first game, the trick with these little assholes is you want to get them on the ground as much as humanly possible. And if you can get one away from the other one, that's great. If the other one can just constantly be taunting, that's great. I use the rage here just to kind of get them off of me. I wouldn't recommend using it, but it does kind of just give you a bit of a chain going. I only use it like a couple of times anyway. And of course I have, rage mode prepared for this, so I always kind of just keep rage mode just in case of any circumstances that require me to fight enemies that are just a bit tougher. But I'll get into more satyr stuff when we get to the translator section. For the most part, the best tips I can give you is you want to try to keep them on the ground as much as possible. And the way to do that is, one, grab them. And two, the other way of doing it is whenever you do like a finisher, like a square finisher, or even after, grabbing them and throwing them on the ground, also, yeah, run back here and go grab the magic box if you don't have magic. If you have magic, grab rage. And I have plenty of magic, so if you don't have any magic at all, grab the magic chest. If you have plenty, then grab rage, which is what I do. I grab rage. And I'll show you what I do in a second. But yeah, with satyrs, when they're on the ground, you can kind of do like a sort of loop combo. Also, I level up, Urael's head to level 2 for this next section, just to make it much faster to deal with these next incoming enemies. Now, when they're on the ground, you want to attack them in the head with a triangle, triangle, square attack. That's kind of what you want to go for, because you want to get them back on the ground again. You can sometimes get them in a loop. And we'll be fighting more satyrs, I believe, in the next episode, so you'll get to see that then. Or unless you're just watching these out of order in your... Which, you know, I'm not saying, like, you should watch them in order. I'm just saying, like, I try to keep everybody in mind just in case. But, oh, before that, stand behind this block and just, you know, do the Medusa gaze, do the Urael gaze. And then, you know, every time that they get too close, just stone them. That's the best advice I can give you. Have level 2 Urael. Level 1 probably works fine enough. If you're behind that block, you should be protected, at least from some of the damage. But these guys are just a nightmare to deal with, and I'd rather not deal with them. So just use Urael and just take them out, you know, just stone them to death, and you should be fine. But yeah, back on topic. I don't want to make, like, anybody have to watch the entire series just to, you know, like, if somebody needed help with a specific section, they would skip to that section that they need help with. And that's usually why I try to repeat certain, you know, tips and advice, just in case somebody, you know, doesn't watch this as, like, a playthrough, which sometimes I watch, you know, certain commentators. I like to watch them go through a game. And then other times when, you know, because a lot of the time, I more so often, I tend to try to play games on hard myself first. And if I really need help, then I look it up and then, you know, go from there. And of course, if I happen to find somebody that, video-wise, that helped me out or whatever the case, then I will usually give them credit. Which happened a lot in Vanquish. If, you know, there's a tip or a trick that I learned from some YouTube video or something somewhere, I typically try to credit the said person I learned it from. Which even then, still, they probably didn't learn it. They might have learned it from somebody else too. But regardless, I try to just tell you guys where I get all my information at. And for those that are curious, most of the guide people that I watch, I don't watch them as often as I do anything else. But typically, if I'm just trying to watch a guide for entertainment purposes, it's usually Big Benedict or at least Seraphim17. There are plenty of other ones out there, like the Godfather Dictator. I think he still uploads. I'm not sure. And there's, you know, there's plenty of others, but those are usually like the main two that I kind of stuck with. And for some reason, I always kind of felt like they were sort of friendly toward each other. I think they are. I'm not 100% sure on that or not. I don't keep up too much. But I always felt like, in terms of commentators, they were always kind of like that group of commentators. You know what I mean? Like the ones that are the hard mode guide type people. And that's usually what I kind of bunched them up into. There was also Taz1 with a number 1 at the end too, after the, you know, the word 1. I don't know if he still uploads or whatever. Probably, but I haven't kept up with that stuff in a while. Anyway, so upon coming in here, I have Rage, so again, I use it. I got Rage from the chest originally to use it against the Wraith, but that didn't work out, seeing the fact that I just didn't bother to use magic on them anyway. And the champion guys, they're a lot of fun to fight. I actually like fighting these guys. But yeah, Rage mode works pretty well against that particular section. Mainly only because there's like a big group of enemies to deal with. So, yeah. Also, speaking of parts of the game that I don't like, specific areas I don't like, I'm not a big fan of the tree section, mainly because of just having to backtrack between it. And if you do, you know, fudge it up in terms of backtracking, then you have to kind of like start a specific section over again, and I'm just not the biggest fan of doing that. So, mainly because there is a chest in that metal platform on the very bottom before your way out, and I think I get it later than I should have, and I had to like backtrack a bit, and that's just annoying. It's one of those where, you know, in terms of puzzles, as somebody who plays it, you know, enough, it's not necessarily a hard or annoying puzzle. Really, it's not. It's just that, oh, I guess I get it the first time. Okay, cool. Pretty sure it's a Gorgonite. Make a liar out of me, why don't you, game? Jeez. I think I had that habit of always thinking that I think it's always a Gorgonite, but it never is. Yeah, this is the part of it that I just don't like, because, like, you have to, with the time stop, like, while you're in time stop, you can't grab chests, you can't grab doors, because it'll just erase the time, which is unfortunate. But that's just the nature of it, so. Again, not a hard section necessarily for puzzles. I gotta stop using that word, I use something else. it's just an area that just kind of becomes a bit more tedious than anything else, really. Now, the worst part of this would probably be the harpies. That's the thing that you have to really watch out for, because these specific harpies, they seem to be less flaky than the other ones. I think these are like the original. Yeah, these look like the God of War 1 original ones. And they tend to do the slam attack more often. Now, I'm not sure there's really that much of a difference between these harpies and God of War 2 harpies. But from what it seems like God of War 1 harpies tend to try to slam attack you way more often, especially like the fiery ones. And those are going to be annoying, especially in the Atlas area. But we'll be getting to that soon, actually, in a couple of videos. Yeah, right after this video is going to be the Icarus fight. Because this one's Perseus, and then after that's Icarus that I do. And that's going to be like a super short video. That's like, oh gosh, like 5 minutes long, something like that, I think. I could have separated the two, but I wanted to do Perseus in one run, and I forgot how long it took to get to him, so that's kind of what that ended up being like. But it's okay. This is still like a 20 to 30 minute video. But yeah, time stop is your friend. That's the best piece of advice I can give you at this point. Now, granted, sometimes it can kind of backfire, because I keep calling it time stop. But usually when you're slowing down time, the problem that can occur is enemies can still be in attack mode. So like the Harpies, for example, when they're doing their slam on you, they can still be doing it even when time is slowed down. And that can pretty much cause a potential accident, because, you know, you'll be too busy trying to avoid it or whatever, and it takes them forever to slam down. You're trying to, like, you know, bait them out from it, but you can't get them because, well, they just don't fudge off, so that's what happens. And yeah, next up is Perseus, and for those that don't know, one, this is a checkpoint, and if you do die multiple times, you get your health back, so if you don't have full health, that's fine. So, Perseus is a really strange fight, only because of its beginning section. You can't use magic against him because you can't see him. I thought that you could, but you can't. So what I do is I use Rage Mode to pretty much get like an AoE type thing going on. This beginning phase takes way too long to deal with. He doesn't do a ton of damage, just in general. So don't worry about the damage that you're taking. It's more so, it's not the amount of damage you take. It's just really like not wanting to get comboed is what kind of sucks. If you start getting comboed, just roll the way. And for those that don't know how this fight particularly works, if you watch the water, you can see like his footsteps, and that's what you want to look out for. Now, while he's invisible, I don't think he can block, so I think every one of your attacks should connect. And if you have Rage, use it. That way you can get a nice AoE. Now, also, when it comes to him getting in the circle prompt, you need to be on him, like, you know, like really hardball. Like, you really need to be on his ass, because if you're not, he will exit out of, you know, the circle prompt, and you'll have to pretty much put him back in it again. So phase 2 is actually a lot more easier. The rest of the phases are much easier than Invisible Phase, which for some might be kind of weird thing to say, but realistically speaking, now that you can see him, he's not that bad to deal with. And the combo that you see I'm doing is, I'm doing, of course, you know, the square triangle combo. I'm not trying to do the finisher. I'm just trying to get some nice, easy pop shot, you know, square hits on him and stuff. So that's kind of what I'm going for. I usually do square triangle, that's my go-to combo, only for the fact that, like, it does decent damage at a very particularly fast rate, and I can get my triangle moves coming up much faster. So yeah, you need to be on him, like, all the time. And that's where phase 3 gets kind of more annoying, is now without his sword, one, he's gonna be doing this more often, which if you're quick on the stick, you'll never get hit. You'll never get hit by that, pretty much. No matter how close he is, if you're quick on the stick and quick on the block, you'll be completely fine. So the idea here is you want to hit him into a wall. And if he starts running away like a little bitch, then just chase him down into a wall. That way, at least then, you can probably get some hits in. Yeah, I used Kronos' Rage just to kind of get something going. Try to get him into some type of combo, but he just wouldn't go. He wouldn't let up. Another fun thing is, at least in phase 2, if you throw back a fireball, then you can actually do damage to him, which is nice. But in phase 3, he typically blocks almost every single one of your attacks. Not all the time, but a lot of the time he will. And again, like I said, the trick here is just to essentially back him into a wall, which I do believe eventually I get him into. I hope I can show that off. And yeah, that square finisher right there, that one is the one that you're trying to go for. That's the key trick. If you can't get the square finisher to work, just go for, you know, just regular square attacks. Go for those long-range square attacks. That way, you know, you can have him at range, and then you can hit him and continuously knock him in the back. But yeah, like I said, you have to be really damn close, because he's really fast on that circle prompt. So it can take you a couple of tries. If you mess it up, that's fine. He gets his health back a bit. Not like fully, but just a bit. Pretty much just enough to be annoying. So yeah, that's Perseus. Like I said, it's mostly just the section where he turns invisible that I would say is probably the hardest part of it. Just because of how irritating and in your face he is. But if you have rage mode, you should be fine. Magic doesn't work while he's invisible, which sucks. And I guess you apparently get a full health heal after you finish off the boss fight, which makes no sense why there's 2 chests there, but who am I to dig at it, right? So, yeah, I mean, granted, maybe those chests are there for the off chance that you need to come back and get them, because I assume you can climb back up there and you know, get magic. Magic at the very least makes sense, but even then still, like, I got my magic back, so I don't know. Unless they're considering, like, the bugs. Like, if you were just to skip the bugs, and they were like, oh, well, what if, you know, somebody comes back and they're fighting the bugs and they get hit and they need magic. Then I guess I could see that. But for the most part, you know, a full health heal after a boss fight is really nice, and I'm quite grateful for that. Oh yeah, I think I screwed this part up, maybe. I think I missed it in time. Granted, there's actually... The timing of this thing's kind of weird, too, because sometimes, in some of my playthroughs, the statue will start to get, like, it'll get to that spot where, like, it'll start to slowly go down at first, and then it'll start to, like, let go, but then you go and, you know, do your block thing, and then it just works, so... Sometimes, it's a bit lenient sometimes, but other than that, a fun little puzzle, I guess. Which, now, after all that's said and done, as you can see the Phoenix in the background, we're getting pretty close. We are going to deal with Icarus next. So, hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you all next time. So, take care, everybody.